This is gonna be the part of the video where a lot of you dumb motherfuckers that came to my channel talking about I'm a Vasyl Lomachenko hater, y'all gonna look real fucking stupid right now. You know what I'm saying? As I said before, my channel was non-biased. I'm a fan of the sport before I'm a fan of any fighter. That keeps my opinions objective, and it also allows me to support my opinions with nothing but fucking facts. I gotta commend Vasyl Lomachenko and give him 100% of my respect for taking a fight he really didn't have to take. Let's face it, he's got a huge powerhouse in HBO and another huge powerhouse and Top Rank backing him, right? Vasyl Lomachenko could do whatever the fuck he wants, fight whoever the fuck he wants, and he's still gonna be pushed with these two powerhouses backing him as one of the greatest fighters to do it in boxing. You know what I'm saying? They're already fucking comparing him to Muhammad Ali, and this nigga only has 10 fights. I gotta give my props to Rigo. I gotta commend him because a guy like Rigo, who doesn't have a media backing, right? Actually, the odds are against him to the point where if he loses this fucking fight, he may be written off for good. You know what I'm saying? The fucking fans out there will believe all the shit that HBO, Top Rank, and the biased media pushed against Rigo will be true. It all came to fruition. So this is going to become a fight where it's a must-win for Rigo, right? Nobody really wants to see him succeed except hardcore boxing fans. And he realized that he had to take the sacrifice needed to show that he is indeed one of the best. What's good? It's your boy 2K here. Shout out to the movement and everybody who's moving with us. Yo, if you haven't already been to our website, 3kingsboxing.com, I suggest you go ahead and do that, man. We got a lot of information up there. We got the upcoming schedule, all the fights that are going to be happening during this last month of 2017 are there. All the information you need is there. We also got previous broadcasts, not podcasts, but broadcasts that myself and the other two Kings have done on the YouTube channel. So if you missed those, you can check them out there. And then of course on the homepage, man, shout out to my man C-Bone, my man Willie the Kid, and many others that are writing for us who are affiliated with the movement umbrella. They are popping out articles, man, like the motherfucking 1940s baby boom. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go brush up on your history. Word up. Man, y'all gotta excuse me. I'm just so fucking happy, man. We got 3 days until we see what many boxing pundits are billing as possibly the greatest fight in professional boxing history. Now, a lot of them might be jumping the gun a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of fights throughout the inception of boxing that we would have to compare and contrast this particular fight to jump to that conclusion. But you gotta understand why they're saying it. I mean, we got two guys who are seen as two of the greatest amateur fighters of all time. At least their name could be synonymously mentioned with guys like Teofimo Stevenson and Felix Savon, whom Felix Savon is the consensus greatest amateur of all time. But Vasyl Lomachenko and Guillermo Rigondeaux are not that far behind, right? And we're getting ready to see those two guys get into the ring under the professional bright lights. We don't see that very often between two of the best amateurs. You know what I'm saying? So you got to understand, just based off that right there, why a lot of boxing pundits are saying this. Yo, Saturday, December 9th, 9 o'clock Eastern time on regular motherfucking network television, bro. ESPN. For you UK cats, y'all are 5 hours ahead, so that'll put you at 2 a.m. And it really don't matter if you ahead, behind, or if it's the next motherfucking day like it will be in Australia. Everybody around the world needs to be tuning in to this fight whenever it comes on in your respective location, dog. This is gonna be a display of masterclass boxing and masterclass ring IQ that we getting ready to see this Saturday. Man, I'm gonna stop teasing y'all motherfuckers, man. Let's jump right into this shit. I've done a couple videos on this already. in the past, just trying to promote this fight. But this here is going to be the official prediction video, and I'm about to break this shit down to the white meat. Let's start with Vasyl Lomachenko, man. He's 5'6". He has a 65.5-inch reach. He's 29 years old, and of course his record is 9-1 with 7 knockouts. As I mentioned previously, he's a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, once in the Beijing Olympics of 2008 at featherweight, which in the amateurs it's 125 pounds, and then again in 2012 at the London Olympic Games at lightweight, which in the amateurs is 132 pounds, right? And then of course as a professional, he's a 2-time WBO champion, once at 126, and of course the title that he holds right now that he will be defending at lightweight, or at junior lightweight, excuse me, against Guillermo Rigondeaux this weekend. One thing that I want you guys to understand about both these fighters is that they're both geniuses in their own right. Starting with Vasyl Lomachenko, he's an offensive genius, right? Vasyl Lomachenko has the ability to do a bunch of unorthodox things where he allows opportunities to unleash his full offensive arsenal against his opponent, right? For example, when getting close to his opponent, he can use his forearm to disable opponents' counterpunching. You've seen this a lot against Gary Russell Jr. You know what I'm saying? Gary Russell Jr., while he's not really an effective, or at least the best counterpuncher that we see, he has very fast hands. So the fact that you have Gary Russell type speed, you could fuck around and get countered at any time because he's so goddamn fast. So Vasyl Lomachenko did a lot of the times to nullify that attack, or at least those fast hands, besides smothering Gary Russell Jr., he would use his forearms, particularly the forearm of his lead hand, and kind of mash it up against Gary Russell's head while he's throwing punches with his excuse me, with his right hand, right? Or his left hand, excuse me. And then he would do it on the opposite side as well. So in doing this, he's mashing his strong hand up against his head, and he's throwing shots with his free hand. And then by the time he's done throwing his combinations, before Gary Russell can attempt to counter, he's already jumped out of range. You know what I'm saying? Also, which is one of my favorite techniques that he does, he knocks his opponent's block down when they're in a high guard to land shots on that particular side. So again, watch the Gary Russell fight. You can actually watch all of his fights. I don't think he did it that much against Miguel Mariaga. I don't remember, but I know against everybody else, and then of course against Orlando Salido, he didn't do it against him, but everybody else he was doing this against. The guy could be right there in range of Vasyl Lomachenko, and he's in a high guard. Vasyl Lomachenko will use his offhand to knock your fucking guard down, and then he'll follow up with a punch. He does that shit to both hands, and he'll mix it up so you can't, it keeps you guessing. You don't know where the next punch is coming from, right? That's one of my favorite moves that Vasyl Lomachenko does. Another unorthodox technique that he does, he uses touching shots. A lot of cats call this pity pat, whatever you want to call it, pity pat, touching shots. But the reason why he does this is to keep the opponent on guard and guessing, which opens up opportunities to land more shots with authority, right? So if he's pity patting you, or he's using touching shots, right, the opponent is trying to figure out what he's going to do next. So they stay in the high guard. You see this with all his opponents. They're standing directly in front of him. They're stuck in the high guard. He's throwing shots to the this is another thing. He could be throwing shots to like the elbow on purpose. Then the next shot comes to like the wrist of his opponent. Then the next shot will go to the wrist of the opposite hand of his opponent. Then it'll go to the body. The opponent doesn't know what's going to happen next or what Vasyl Lomachenko was trying to set up because he's such an unorthodox fighter, right? So they stand in the high guard just waiting for an opening. And in that opportunity, when they're staying in that high guard, Vasyl Lomachenko is able to unleash more power shots while doing so, because they're bringing their hands down to guard their body. They're bringing their hands up. You know what I'm saying? They're trying to elude by backing up, but they end up backing up into the ropes, which is where Vasyl Lomachenko really unleashes a fucking heavy offensive arsenal if you're up against the ropes, right? Or if he's got you in a corner. I mean, that pity pat shit, a lot of people talk shit about it, but it's done for a reason, and it's a smart tactic when he's doing it against the opponents that he's been facing up to this point, right? Also, his ability to see the openings while doing the touching shots. He can actually see what's opening up, and he fires off. And a lot of the time, he's very fucking accurate. You know what I'm saying? Another thing that he does, and I kind of mentioned this already, he will smother his opponent in close if he sees there's an opportunity for his opponent to counter on one of his mistakes. Now, Vasyl Lomachenko is a great fighter. You know, one of the best amateur fighters of all time, as is Guillermo Rigondeaux, but they both make mistakes, right? We're human beings. We all make mistakes. Well, the good thing about Vasyl Lomachenko is this. When he understands that he's made a mistake, for example, he throws a jab and his opponent slips it, the next thing Vasyl will do is lower his shoulders and step in to smother anything that his opponent is going to throw back at him. Very, very fucking smart tactic, and it works every single time up to this point, right? One of his other biggest strengths is what I like to call, and many others call it this as well, the triangle theory, right? And essentially what the triangle theory is you're going to have 3 points in which you move around your opponent, essentially given angles, right? There could be a multitude of events that happen that make you want to make these movements. The opponent can throw a punch, you can slip it, you sidestep to your left or you sidestep to your right. You can actually throw a punch or finish off an offensive arsenal or a combination, whatever, a flurry, step to your left, step to your right, end up on the side of your opponent, right? Or you could just be using elite footwork trying to make your opponent guess, right? Trying to keep your opponent from getting into a rhythm, right? So you're just moving around them, but you're staying within that triangle. You know what I'm saying? And while you're keeping your opponent in the middle of that triangle, you are actually dictating the pace, and you're also dictating the range at which you want to keep your opponent in. Okay? This is a brilliant tactic that he has mastered, and Manny Pacquiao, at least a younger Manny Pacquiao, because he sure as fuck didn't do this shit against no Jeff Horn. You know what I'm saying? But a younger Manny Pacquiao, they mastered this technique. Also, Guillermo Rigondeaux can do it as well. He's good at this as well. But Vasyl's ability to use the triangle theory benefits him because he's high volume, right? So let's say he throws a straight left hand and decides to circle to his, or to pivot to his right, right? Well, he's now on the left side of his opponent. And while his opponent is trying to turn around to see where Vasyl Lomachenko went, Vasyl is still throwing punches at you, right? He's high volume, so he's basically taking you out of your comfort zone while keeping you in the middle of the triangle. Fucking beautiful tactic, man. Also, he has an underrated chin. I don't hear a lot of motherfuckers talking about Vasyl Lomachenko's chin, man. And it's not, let me just say this, it's not really his chin per se. He has underrated durability, resilience, right? This motherfucker's resilient. I'll give you an example. Miguel Mariaga was hitting this motherfucker with some nice shots. Miguel Mariaga is a very good power puncher. You know what I'm saying? He's a Colombian dude that's been sleeping niggas since the amateurs, right? Now, granted, he did move up from 126. And again, this is a lot of the criticism that people have on Guillermo Rigondeaux, because he's moving up from fucking 122. So if Miguel Mariaga's power didn't translate over to 130, right, then how the fuck is Guillermo Rigondeaux, who's actually really a 118 pounder fighting at 122, how is his power going to translate, right? So that's kind of the criticism that people have. But yeah, Miguel Mariaga was hitting him with some good ass shots, and Vasyl Lomachenko was taking them. I mean, I seen clear left and right hooks in that fight land flush on Vasyl Lomachenko, and he took them. He didn't even buckle, right? Very, very underrated chin. Now, some of the weaknesses that I have on Vasyl is this. And there's one that's going to shock y'all, and I'm going to leave that shit for last. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to leave the best for last. He gets complacent when comfortable, and he could be caught with his hands low while coming in. And that goes back to what I just mentioned about Miguel Mariaga. I only told you that he landed left and right hooks in that fight, but the reason why he was landing them is because there was two reasons. One, Vasyl Lomachenko likes to drop his hands when he's coming inside. Sometimes he'll come in a high guard, sometimes he won't. Sometimes he'll come in with one arm up, one arm down, kind of in a Roy Jones Jr. type of way, right? Because he's still dictating the majority of his offense behind that jab and behind a lot of his pity-pat shots, that he's still got his hands kind of at a low position, right? Also on the inside, the second way, when he's inside, I've seen Vasyl Lomachenko square up so many fucking times against Mariaga, against Roman Martinez, against Orlando Salido, against Gary Russell, hell, even against the bum-ass niggas that he fought in between. He was squaring up every single time. This is something that he does. It's not something that that he's doing on purpose. This is a bad habit. You know what I'm saying? And the fighters that he's fought up to this point have not been able to exploit that bad habit due to the sheer amount of volume that Vasyl Lomachenko has, right? Basically, his high-octane offense allows him to get away with that particular flaw, right? Miguel Mariaga was catching this motherfucker almost every single time when he was coming in with some beautiful ass left. Well, actually, let me take the beautiful off. With some wild ass left and right hooks. Now, you would think a guy who is as good as Vasyl Lomachenko is would not get caught with those type of wide looping shots. But I think it has a lot to do with the fact that he's complacent, meaning that he's too comfortable to the point where he's cocky, right? Remember in that fight, he started baiting Miguel Mariaga in the corner and shit. He had knocked him down or whatever, which in my opinion was the feet getting tangled more so than the actual straight left hand that he landed that contributed to the knockdown. But either way, he got knocked down. He gets up. He then goes to the fucking corner and starts baiting or taunting Miguel Mariaga to come in. In doing so, Miguel Mariaga was afraid to exchange, right? But he did land some nice shots when he did throw them. That type of shit right there, you cannot do any of that against Guillermo Rigondeaux. You cannot walk in with your fucking hands down. In my opinion, that pity pat shit is not going to work on Guillermo Rigondeaux, but he may do that because he's used to doing that to kickstart his offense and to basically, like I said, have the sheer volume, keep something in his opponent's face so they can keep guessing, right? So I still think he's going to do that. And you definitely 100% cannot square up on the inside, man. A guy with Guillermo Rigondeaux's ring IQ will exploit that shit every single time, right? Another one, all of his competition did not possess dynamic footwork, nor were they defensively sound. This is a big one. Now, on the flip side, I have kind of not the same criticism, but something that Guillermo Rigondeaux has on his resume that pretty much, how do I say it, is a detriment, not a detriment, but is a flaw when making this particular matchup comparison, right? But this one is Vasyl Lomachenko's flaw. That's when you look at his resume. Gary Russell Jr. had fast hands, but he did not have fast or not even quick footwork. Gary Russell Jr. was standing directly in front of Vasyl Lomachenko the entire fight, and he tried to beat him with his hand speed. That was his downfall, because every time that he tried to throw combinations, Vasyl Lomachenko would either take him, block him, and then right after Gary Russell stopped, he would come back with combinations of his own. And Vasyl Lomachenko's offensive arsenal, or his offensive attack, is so dynamic that it looked better, it looked prettier, and it was more fluid than Gary Russell's. If you watch that fight, you can see Gary Russell starting to push his shots. When he's throwing shots, he's like, making those noises. He's trying to push his shots, right? Just trying to keep up with the offensive arsenal of Vasyl Lomachenko. You see what I'm saying? But if he would have known better, if he would have had better elusive ability due to his footwork, he wouldn't have needed to try so hard, and he wouldn't have needed to lean so much on his hand speed, right? That's what got him beat. And then, of course, Orlando Salido, no fucking footwork. Roman Martinez, no fucking footwork. I'm only going to name the guys that matter. Nicholas Walters, while a lot of people thought he was a good fighter, I thought he was a good fighter after he beat Nonito Donaire. But one of my biggest criticisms, even all the way back then, was that he did not have the footwork and he stayed in the pocket, right? That's what he did. That's actually how Nonito Donaire actually caught him with one of his big left hands in that fight. It's because he stayed in the pocket. And then, of course, Miguel Mariaga. He does not have dynamic footwork, nor were any of these guys defensively sound. Each one of these guys that I named have serious flaws in their defense. Actually, if you think about it, out of all these guys, and this should make you laugh, the most defensively sound fighter that Vasyl Lomachenko has fought was Gary Russell Jr., who does not have a defense. You know what I'm saying? My man has no fucking defense. He is high octane. He's not even high octane. He's more on the offensive side, right? Gary Russell Jr. in boxing is like Steph Curry in the NBA. He shoots threes like a motherfucker, right? He's flashy, right? Like Kyrie Irving, flashy. That's what Gary Russell is. You know what I'm saying? His hand speed are his three-point shots. You know what I'm saying? His combination punching are his flashiness. You know what I'm saying? But he sacrifices defense in order to get that shit off, right? So a guy with Guillermo Rigondeaux's defense, which can't be really matched when you're looking at the landscape of boxing as a whole, but the guys that Vasyl Lomachenko has fought don't even have a quarter of Guillermo Rigondeaux's defense. That's a major flaw. And then the last one, as I said, I was going to save the best for last. And this is going to be the point where motherfuckers hit the dislike button. Vasyl Lomachenko is strictly an inside fighter. Because most of his tricks that he uses for success, those tricks that I mentioned previously that were part of his strengths, right? For example, the triangle theory that I had already explained previously, can only be successful at close range. Fighters who judge distance well while fighting from a distance can have success. Who is he fighting again? He's fighting a man that can judge distance very well while fighting from a distance. If you look at Vasyl Lomachenko, like I said, everything he does is at close range. He's not an outside fighter. A lot of people seem to think he's an outside fighter, right? Because he may jab his way in, but that's not outside fighting. Outside fighting is what Guillermo Rigondeaux likes to do, right? What Erislandy Lara likes to do. You know, that's outside fighting. Vasyl Lomachenko is literally an inside fighter, and all of his tricks to his trade rely on him being literally 2 feet away from his opponent. That's a flaw when you're fighting a guy by the name of Guillermo Rigondeaux. And honestly, that almost makes you one-dimensional. Pretty much does make you one-dimensional. Let's see what he changes in this fight. Shout out to a cat that came to my video, the Camacho family. That's the name of his YouTube profile. He asked me the question, do I think Vasyl Lomachenko needs to change anything in this fight? And I told him I have an answer to that. And he basically said if he needs to change something, will he be successful at changing? That is the one thing that he does need to change. He can't be relegated to only being an inside fighter against Guillermo Rigondeaux. I may be wrong, right? This is just a prediction video. But if you do film study and you do compare and contrast of both these fighter styles and how each fighter will look against the other in the ring, relegating yourself to only being an inside fighter means that you'll have to apply a lot of pressure. Applying a lot of pressure against a masterclass counterpuncher, well, that's going to get your ass countered. You're going to run into some shots. And eventually, as you're running into those shots, that counterpuncher is going to adapt to everything that you're doing, right? You'll become gun shy, right? So he cannot relegate himself to being just an inside fighter, which can take away a lot of his ability because, like I said, all the tricks to his trade rely on him being on the inside. Let's move to Guillermo Rigondeaux. My man's 5'4", with a 68-inch reach. So he gives up 2 inches in height, but he makes up for it with 2.5 inches in reach. He's 37 years old. Shit, that's by professional boxing standards, you know what I'm saying? If we got a hold of his real birth certificate, he's probably 44. You know what I'm saying? He's 17-0 with 11 knockouts. As I mentioned previously in this video, he's also a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, once in 2000 at the I think that was the Sydney, that was the Sydney, Australia games, and then in 2004 for the Athens, Greece games, right? And both of those gold medals were at bantamweight, and bantamweight in the amateurs is 119 pounds. All right, he would have been one of the few amateur fighters to get 3 gold medals out of the Olympics, but in 2008, when they had the Beijing Olympics, he was trying to defect from Cuba with Erislandy Lara, which he ended up doing in 2009, and that ended up being his the year of his first professional debut fight, right? He's also a 2-time champion, just at one weight, of course, at 122. He currently still holds the WBA super title there, and then of course he was the WBO champion, the belt that he got off of Nonito Donaire in 2013 and was subsequently stripped, and then the belt went right back to Nonito Donaire after that, right? Let me get some water real quick, people. I'm killing this shit, dog. All right, let's move into his strengths. As I said previously, Vasyl Lomachenko is an offensive genius. Well, this guy is a defensive genius, right? He uses the jab as a blinder and to set the rhythm of his opponent. Now, what I mean by that is this. Guillermo Rigondeaux is seen pawing with the jab a lot, right? And what he does with that is, if you watch the Hisashi Amagasa fight and also the Nonito Donaire fight, those are 2 good fights he does it in. He'll stay on the outside and he'll throw the jab, right? He'll throw the jab. He'll throw the jab. And what the opponent is doing, what you do in boxing is, it's a game of chess. Even if you don't know how to play chess, but you're a boxer, you're still playing chess, right? It's just like a nigga going to the chessboard and wanting to play chess. Even though he sucks at the game, he's still playing the game, right? It's the same thing with boxing. You're still playing chess. Well, that fighter is reacting to each jab that you throw, right? And then he gets into a rhythm, and he starts to do subtle things that a smart fighter like Guillermo Rigondeaux can adapt to and notice, okay, if I throw this jab at this particular speed and at this particular position, he's going to react in that particular way, right? That's what he does a lot. And while he's doing that shit, he's setting the fucking rhythm of the opponent, and the opponent doesn't really even realize it. So when he decides to maybe come over the jab of Guillermo Rigondeaux, that motherfucker's already out of range. You know what I'm saying? He already knows. And he has this this ability to, it's ingrained in his style. Let's say if he throws the jab and a guy comes over his jab, he's immediately going to duck and lean to his left side. That's if he's fighting an orthodox fighter. If he's fighting a southpaw, then of course he's going to duck and lean more to his right side to evade that jab, right? And then on top of that, he's going to put his weight on his back foot that allows him to evade by using a back step. He does that as well. You know what I'm saying? So that jab not only sets up his offense, but it sets up his defense. And I'll get to how that jab sets up his offense shortly here, right? Guillermo Rigondeaux is the master at the 180-degree pivot after slipping the power hand, man. This shit is just gorgeous, man. The footwork on this guy is ridiculous. If you watch his fights, a guy will throw, let's say an orthodox fighter will throw the right hand, right? Guillermo Rigondeaux will slip it, and since he's a southpaw, he'll step forward with his right foot and then swing his left leg or his back leg in the opposite direction of his opponent in a 180-degree manner, so he ends up ducking and moving literally almost behind his opponent, right? And his opponent is trying to recover, like, oh shit, where'd he go? He's trying to recover. His opponent actually leaves themselves open for a counter straight left hand. Fucking gorgeous move. while y'all are listening to this video, or when you finish listening to this video, I advise you to go check out Guillermo Rigondeaux's fights and look at what I'm talking about. Nobody has mastered the 180-degree pivot the way Guillermo Rigondeaux has done, right? He also has the ability to stay out of range by inches. Man, the perfect example of this shit is against Nonito Donaire, man. I can't remember what round it was, but Rigo was kind of near the corner. And Nonito Donaire was standing directly in front of this cat. I mean, their fucking legs were touching. He had stepped on Rigo's foot, by the way, right? And their femurs were touching. The nigga was right in front of him, right? And he's throwing left hook, right hook, missed every last one of those shots. Who does that remind you of? The great defensive genius, Pernell Whitaker. Wasn't that against Oscar De La Hoya, where that same sequence happened? He was sitting there throwing all sorts of shit. The jab, the straight right, the right hook, the left hook. He was trying to get Pernell Whitaker with everything he could. And Whitaker was just weaving every single shot. And then the bell rang, and as the bell rang, Pernell Whitaker started dancing and shit. You know what I'm saying? This is exactly the same type of exchange that Guillermo Rigondeaux did against Nonito Donaire, man. And it was so debilitating. Nonito Donaire just stepped back and had this look like, fuck, how the fuck did I miss this cat? And what did Rigo do? He puts his hand out and shrugs his shoulders like, you can't touch me, motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? That particular ability is something that you have to have worked on young, as a young fighter. You can't just pop up in boxing one day and have the ability to stand directly in front of your opponent and have the upper body movement and the perception of knowing where shots are going to come from next to be able to make your opponent miss when he's right there. That shit right there is something that you had to have worked on, man, since like I'm sounding like 4 or 5 years old, dog. I mean, this is truly a gift of defensive genius, right? He keeps his lead hand ready to parry shots by the opponent's adjacent hand on his forearm. Now, this is another thing that you just have to work on, this type of shit in the gym, man. These are like intangibles that if you're good at it, you're good at it. If you're not good at it, well, you won't execute it properly. Man, too many times have I seen cats try to jab with Guillermo Rigondeaux, and he just parries that bitch right off his fucking forearm. You know what I'm saying? And then I think there was a fight against, I think it was Tion Kennedy. Tion Kennedy was like, damn, he's blocking all my goddamn jabs. Let me feint with that bitch. He feints with it. What does Rigo do? Put up the forearm of his right hand, his lead arm. Fucking ridiculous, dog. Like, he's like, bruh, throw that bitch. I'm a block it. You know what I'm saying? Rigo is an exceptionally great defensive fighter. I mean, he's, like I said, he's a defensive genius. Vasyl Lomachenko is an offensive genius. That's what makes this fight so fucking intriguing to want to watch, right? More of his strengths. His ring generalship is elite due to his ability to be elusive and command respect with his counters. Kind of in the same way that Vasyl Lomachenko's high-tech, high-volume keeps fighters at bay. Well, Guillermo Rigondeaux does it in a slick, less amount of volume, right, way from a distance. He keeps his opponents missing shots, which then makes them desperate, right? When they get desperate, it leaves them open for counters. When it leaves them open for counters, Rigo's ring IQ is so smart that he's able to exploit that. And when he exploits that, that's when they become, how do you say, fucking gun shy, right? So when they're gun shy, it's like, well, what the fuck do I do next? You know what I'm saying? They don't know what to do next. So it's a situation where, like I said, just like Vasyl Lomachenko's high-tech style keeps opponents from wanting to do anything outside of their comfort zone because they're afraid of getting caught with a shot. Same thing with Rigo. just doing it from a different style, right? As I already alluded to, his ring IQ is just, it's exceptional. With the absence of Andre Ward, I think Guillermo Rigondeaux is the smartest fighter in boxing. Hell, he probably is arguably the smarter fighter than Andre Ward. And in my opinion, I think he was a smarter fighter than Andre Ward. But a lot of boxing pundits, just given the fact that Andre Ward has already proven himself against very good opposition throughout his career, they're going to give that IQ edge to Andre Ward, right? But Rigo knows how to adjust in real time and how to remove mistakes that he made previously while going forward. Perfect example of this is against Satoshi Amagasa. Now, and I'll get to this in a minute in detail, but the mistakes he made in that fight to get knocked down, right? Well, he got back up the 2 times he was knocked down and proceeded to dominate the fight worse than what he was before that, right? And not only did he go to dominate the fight, but he made sure Amagasa couldn't land the same punches he landed to knock him down the first 2 times. Amagasa could never land it again. Usually when you knock a guy down, that gives you, it's kind of like, oh shit, I just found something. Let me continue to do that. That's what you do as a fighter. But Rigo's so smart, he's like, well, let me adjust by doing this to not allow that motherfucker to hit me with that same shot. And that's exactly how he does it. He did it against Ricardo Cordoba when he was dropped in that fight. He did it against Nonito Donaire, although he was dropped in the 10th round of that fight, which was, you know, there was only two rounds left when he got dropped. And by that time, Rigo had already been dominating the fight, you know what I'm saying, for fucking 9.5 rounds. But he still got up, did round 11 and round 12. Nonito couldn't land the same punch again. And then, of course, Satoshi Amagasa, right? The 2 times he got knocked down there. An underrated ability that he has an excellent ability to shift his weight into his shots, which makes his counter punching more deadly. Now, even the average fighter, or I don't want to say fighter, the average fan understands that counter punching is a deadly tool to use, because it typically means, or in most of the time, the opponent that's being countered doesn't see the counter punch coming, right? That's why it's such a deadly tool. Well, when you got a guy who's mastered the ability to shift his weight into his counters to the point where every single fucking counter punch that he throws feels like a brick is hitting you in the face, it makes the counter punching more deadly. Hence why almost everybody this nigga's fought, not everybody he's fought, but almost everybody he's fought, has been dropped by a fucking Guillermo Rigondeaux counter punch, because he's shifting all of his weight into the shot, and they can't take it. I mean, the shot value that this little man has, that he provides, or let me say produces, from shifting all of his weight into his shots, the guys at his weight can't take that. You know what I'm saying? And that's why they're dropping. That's why Moises Flores was dead and shit when he got hit by that shot after the bell. You know what I'm saying? They can't take the shot. You know what I'm saying? So that is an underrated ability. That's just like I don't hear people talking about Vasyl Lomachenko's resilience. I don't hear people talking about Guillermo Rigondeaux's ability to generate power by shifting his weight on the side of his counter punches. I don't hear anybody talking about that. You know what I'm saying? Weaknesses. It's not his chin, people. It's not his chin. Y'all know where I'm going. I already talked about it. He's already been knocked down 4 times in his career, right? 17 professional fights. He's been knocked down 4 times, twice in the same fight, right? But it's not his chin. I keep hearing people say, and this is like one of the biggest reasons for why people are picking Vasyl Lomachenko. Oh man, Guillermo Rigondeaux's chinny. Watch the knockdowns, people. While I have praised Guillermo Rigondeaux's footwork, he makes mistakes and gets himself in trouble because of his footwork, right? He's so slick. he relies on his footwork to get him out of trouble, that at times he gets caught off balance. And the opponents that he's facing can throw a shot at the right time and catch him, they'll knock him down because he's off balance. Remember, the majority of guys that Guillermo Rigondeaux has fought are bigger than him. He's a natural 118 pounder. He won 2 Olympic gold medals at 119. He's fighting in the professionals at 122, right? From the amateur circuit, that's only 3 pounds. From his natural weight, it's 4 pounds, right? He could easily go down to 118 and go fuck with Zolani Tete. You know what I'm saying? Easily. That's why they gave Tete the opportunity to fight Guillermo Rigondeaux, because he could make that weight, right? But you also got to understand that since he's so small, these guys are much bigger. So the strength produced behind the punch that they're giving Guillermo Rigondeaux while he's caught off balance, that has actually been knocking him down. Why do you think when he gets back up, he's not hurt? He's not even buzzed. He's just like, man, yeah, man, shit, shake my hands, all right, cool. And then also, why do you think he's able to commence the ass whooping to be worse than what it was prior to the knockdowns? A chinny guy is normally buzzed after being knocked down. And the reason being is because his neck and his jaw cannot take the shock of a powerful punch, right? So the legs go first. That's a chinny guy, okay? See, it's kind of a confusing situation here, because when you say chinny, you're like, oh, his chin is weak. But in reality, when we say a motherfucker's chinny, it's really his legs, right? Because when you get hit in the jaw, and I've been knocked down in fights, when you get hit in the jaw, what is the reason why you can't stand up anymore? It's because your legs are gone, right? So it's not necessarily the chin that's weak, right? It plays a part. But the real reason for why you fall is because of your legs, okay? So a chinny guy like, like, what's his name? The fucking British guy, the British heavyweight, that was an Olympic gold medalist, Ali Harrison. There we go, Ali Harrison. That's a chinny motherfucker. You flick his chin, his legs go immediately, right? That's why he's always getting knocked out in the first round and shit. You know what I'm saying? That's a chinny nigga. All right? So, with Guillermo Rigondeaux being able to recover without being even a little buzzed, without his legs even looking a little Bambi-ish, that tells you he's not a chinny guy. And then again, if you just watch the footage of his knockdowns, it's clearly because he's off balance, right? But that is a flaw, because if you get caught off balance against a guy who's such an octane offensive fighter, a high-octane offensive fighter like Vasyl Lomachenko, well, then I can see Guillermo Rigondeaux getting dropped in this fight. And with this fight possibly being a close fight, right? A fight where fighters can win by split decision, majority decision, a knockdown can be very fucking detrimental. And it doesn't matter the fact that Guillermo Rigondeaux was knocked down because he was off balance. No, no. What matters is Vasyl Lomachenko scored the extra point, right? That's a big flaw. Also, as I alluded to earlier, I said if we look at Guillermo Rigondeaux's resume, we'll notice that most of his success comes, you know, there's a gap there where most of his success comes against fighters that don't mirror or remotely mirror of Vasyl Lomachenko's offensive arsenal, right? Well, the problem is most of his success is against orthodox fighters, right? Now, he has fought southpaws. You know, he fought Jazza Dickens last year, right? Answorn Yotjan, that Thailand cat. Motherfucker only fought primarily in Thailand. So, you know, usually those cats, they dominate the lower divisions, 105, 108, you know what I'm saying, 112 maybe. They dominate those divisions, right? But usually in the higher divisions of guys that fight primarily in Thailand, they're not that good, even though they can have records of like 70-2. They're really not that good, right? He fought him in 2014. Willie Casey in 2011, right? Those guys are not high-level fighters. Willie Casey was a highly touted prospect, but he was never a high-level upper echelon fighter. The only upper echelon southpaw that Guillermo Rigondeaux fought was former WBA super bantamweight champion Ricardo Cordoba, right, in 2010. And that fight was a split decision win for Guillermo Rigondeaux. So a lot of the tricks that Guillermo Rigondeaux is able to do that supports the fact that he's such a defensive genius has really come against orthodox fighters. Same thing with Vasyl Lomachenko of why he's such an offensive genius, right? The tricks that makes him an offensive genius comes with him only being an inside fighter, right? So we got two dilemmas here, two major gaping flaws that's in the geniuses of both of these fighters, right? So that's why I say, as I said in the video previous to this one where I talked about the 138-pound rehydration clause won't mean anything, right? This is why I say this is going to be a fight where we see who is really the smarter fighter, right? The fighter with the best ring IQ is going to win this fight. It's not the fighter with the better skill. Hell, Roy Jones Jr. had much better skill than Antonio Tarver. He got knocked out. Roy Jones Jr. had much better skill than Glenn Johnson. He got knocked out, right? It's not the fighter with the better skill in this particular situation. This is a high-level game of chess. A very high-level game of chess. And I've talked about Vasyl Lomachenko's IQ not matching his athleticism, but I will say he's still a smart fighter, right? He's a smart fighter, but I just think he relies more on his athleticism. But this is going to be a game, or a fight, excuse me, where Vasyl Lomachenko is going to have to rely a little bit more on his ring IQ if he wants to defeat somebody of Guillermo Rigondeaux's abilities, right? That has Guillermo Rigondeaux's abilities anyway. That's why this is going to be such a fucking chess match. Who is going to exploit the flaw of the geniuses, right? Can Guillermo Rigondeaux show that the only way Vasyl Lomachenko can be successful is when he's close to his opponent? Given the fact that I just said Rigo can dictate the pace from the outside and fight you literally from the outside the entire fight by counterpunching the shit out of you, right? Making you miss. Even if you're standing right there in front of him, he's going to make you miss, right? Demoralize you, right? Will that ability make Vasyl Lomachenko show that he is a one-dimensional inside type of fighter and can only use the tricks of his trade while he's on the inside? Or will Vasyl Lomachenko exploit the fact that the only reason Guillermo Rigondeaux, or the theory that Guillermo Rigondeaux has been successful with his defensive genius tactics is because the majority of them came against orthodox fighters, or at least it looks better against orthodox fighters. Will Vasyl Lomachenko be able to show that Guillermo Rigondeaux cannot do those same techniques against a high-octane, high-level, a guy that has the dynamic footwork, southpaw, like Vasyl Lomachenko? Will he be able to exploit that? And that's going to be key here. I said this before. I'll probably be watching these two fighters' feet more than I'm watching their hands. Real talk. Because the footwork is going to play a major role here, right? Let me get into my pick. And here's the reason why I'm picking who I'm picking. Vasyl Lomachenko, in my opinion, if we look at the two guys and what they bring to the table, right? I've always felt there's two ways you can beat Vasyl Lomachenko. The first way, we've already seen it. Maul him. He tries to do get you close on the inside, keep punches and bunches all up in your face, keep you guessing, keep you, have you smothering your offensive attack, right? But if you do the same to him, and you're actually the bigger man where you can bully him, that can beat him. We've already seen that. Orlando Salido, right? Also, the second thing that I've noticed by watching Vasyl Lomachenko is if a guy can move with Vasyl, if he's not fighting a guy that stays directly in front of him, that only moves back, doesn't move laterally, right? A guy that allows Vasyl Lomachenko to command the pace so much that he's stuck in the pocket in a high guard, right? If he's not fighting a guy who isn't able to provide angles in the same manner, probably not as good, but in the same manner as Vasyl Lomachenko, right? Will he be able to beat that guy? And my answer is no. I think Guillermo Rigondeaux will be able to move out of the positions that Vasyl Lomachenko is used to keeping fighters in, right? Also, I feel that Guillermo Rigondeaux's counterpunching ability and his ability to put all of his weight in his shots will nullify Vasyl Lomachenko. It will actually make it to where he's thinking, oh shit, should I do this? Should I do what I was getting ready to do? I just got countered. Damn, look how he just moved out of position. He moved somewhat like me, right? And I'm not saying that Vasyl Lomachenko has never seen this type of movement. I mean, the motherfucker has like 496 amateur bouts. I'm pretty sure he's seen that kind of movement before. But this is a totally different stage. This is the bright lights, right? And Guillermo Rigondeaux is a much better fighter than he was as an amateur. And as an amateur, he was damn near unstoppable, right? He's even better than that now. I also believe that Guillermo Rigondeaux, whenever Vasyl Lomachenko is moving and he's jumping around and he's not paying attention to the fact that a fighter who can move and keep Vasyl in front of him at a distance while dictating the pace, that's a detriment to him because he keeps his hands down, right? Guillermo Rigondeaux will be able to do that. If Vasyl Lomachenko wants to do the touching shots or the pity-patting while jumping around, take some of that on his arms, right? But at the same time, he's going to move in the positions that Vasyl Lomachenko leaves. And in doing so, he's going to be open for a counter. Why? Because he keeps his hands down. One thing that I've seen against Gary Russell Jr., when he did the whole moving Gary Russell's block down, he moved Gary Russell's left hand down, right, his left glove down, with his left glove. So that means he had to reach across and move it down. And then he was going to shoot the right hand. Well, when he did that, he was wide open for Gary Russell right hand to the body. I mean, wide the fuck open. But Gary Russell doesn't have the reaction time to shoot that shot off. Guillermo Rigondeaux does. And that's just one example of him being open while he's on the inside. I think this is going to be a counterpunch fest due to the fact that Guillermo Rigondeaux will be able to move with Vasyl Lomachenko. And that's something that Vasyl has not seen as a professional. I think the second theory of what I believe a fighter must do to beat Vasyl Lomachenko as a boxer, right? Guillermo Rigondeaux has all the skill set, the IQ, and more to be able to do that. I got Guillermo Rigondeaux in this fight. The only thing that I think could happen is that Rigo gets dropped due to him being off balance, and that makes the fight even closer. But if he doesn't get dropped, I would have Guillermo Rigondeaux winning this fight by majority decision. I just think with the whole Top Rank officials, them promoting this fight, Caribbean Promotions being the smaller promotional company, and then of course he's with Rock Nation too, them being the smaller promotional company as well, I think there's going to be some fuckery on the judges' side. But the fight is going to be so obvious, right? And before I leave this video, let me just say this. The fight's going to be so obvious based on the 4 criteria of judging, right? Ring generalship, effective aggression, accurate punching, defense, right? Guillermo Rigondeaux wins the defense like by a landslide, right? I think Guillermo Rigondeaux will win the accurate punching because he's going to be countering the shit out of Vasyl Lomachenko. Because contrary to what I believe Vasyl must do about changing who he is so he's not seen as just a one-dimensional fighter fighting on the inside, that's what he's going to do. That's what he knows, right? He's going to get countered all damn night. Effective aggression, I'll give that to Vasyl Lomachenko, and I think early on he's going to win some rounds because of that, right? And then ring generalship, I give that to Guillermo Rigondeaux. Why? Because he's going to adjust. The counter punching is going to make Vasyl Lomachenko think for the first time. And I'm not talking about think about what to do offensively, right, next, because he's got like a fucking lamb to slaughter standing in front of him. No, it's going to make him think, oh shit, how do I do what I want to do offensively while staying defensively grounded? That's something I don't think Vasyl Lomachenko pays much attention to because of the opposition he's been fighting, right? We already seen that against Orlando Salido. He couldn't adapt. A lot of people think that he did because he started winning the later rounds. And actually, let me say this, Orlando Salido is so one-dimensional, it's not hard to adapt to that guy. It's not hard to maybe change it up a little bit and start taking rounds. But I don't think he can adapt on the level that he needs to adapt to when fighting a guy like Guillermo Rigondeaux, right? So I got Rigo, man, my majority decision. It's going to be interesting what happens when he takes that 130-pound title from Vasyl Lomachenko. YouTube, do what you do in the comment section. Be real. Let me know what you think about this fight. Who you got? This is real talk for real fans. One.